Well, thanks everyone for coming out. Today we've seen another example of just what an erratic pretend partner Donald Trump is. Tariffs have been threatened at 20% one day, 35% the next, 10% the following day, seemingly unrelated to any kind of bilateral engagement with the Trump regime. You have to wonder why Australia is being so weak in that bilateral relationship. We've seen countries like Canada take a stronger stand on international relations and being punished by a country that used to be a close ally. We really need to ensure that our government is not being cowed and bullied and silenced in our behaviour as an international player, our ethical response as a middle power, because we're fearful of the next erratic move by Donald Trump. So yes, Australia dodged a bullet in the latest round of tariffs from Donald Trump. But there's more bullets to come because it's a dangerous, erratic regime in Washington and we need to respond to it with maturity and independence. This weekend is going to be a pretty tough weekend for the Labor Party and for Anthony Albanese. He's avoiding going to the first major National Labor conference in Victoria. And there's a reason he's avoiding doing it. It's because his membership is in open revolt. The grassroots members of the Labor Party are joining with millions of Australians and making two clear demands. The first is to end AUKUS and put some distance between us and that erratic Trump administration. Stop spending tens of billions of dollars on nuclear submarines we'll never get. The membership get it. It's extraordinary that none of the federally elected members of the Labor Party are able to show that same leadership. And the Victorian grassroots membership are also going to be making a strong statement on Gaza. And we expect that to be demanding real action, not slogans from the Prime Minister, but real action. And we know what action involves when you're taking a step against a rogue regime that's in breach of international law, because we've taken that action in relation to Russia. We continue to make the call. And I can tell you now, it's backed by millions of Australians and a growing list of civil society to place sanctions on Israel equivalent to what have been put on Russia. End the two-way arms trade. No more of this nonsense about non-lethal weapons parts. And finally put some pressure on the Netanyahu regime to put food back into Gaza, to stop kids from starving, to stop the crisis facing 2.5 million people imposed by a regime in gross breach of international law. Finally, it's been a busy 2 weeks in Parliament. And it's been down here with a united Green team, placing the climate on the agenda, placing international relations, a fair, a decent, humane foreign policy on the agenda. But I'll tell you what I'll be doing on the weekend. I'll be marching with tens of thousands of Sydney-siders, hopefully across the Harbour Bridge, with Greens members, no doubt many Labor Party members. But the question is, why can the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, the Foreign Minister not also march with millions of Australians to say a free Palestine and to end the genocide in Gaza? I'm looking forward to joining with tens of thousands of Sydney-siders as we march for a free Palestine, to end the starvation of Gaza. And I can tell you I'm proud that I'll be doing that alongside of my members. I won't be dodging them this weekend. I'll be marching with them.
Do you welcome Australia dodging any higher tariffs? And do you think that the military relationship between Australia and the US has been key to it? For example, Pine Gap, the relationship that we don't really talk about.
Well, of course I dodge. Well, of course we welcome the fact that, for once, Australia... Yeah, I'm going to start that again. Of course I'm very direct. No, of course we welcome the fact that on this occasion, Australia dodged the bullet. One of countless bullets that are flying out of Washington against their allies and against their traditional partners. But you would have to be foolish to think that we're going to dodge the next wave of bullets, or that the erratic behaviour, the dangerous behaviour of Trump won't continue. If Australia does decide that it wants to take a genuinely independent foreign policy, we've already seen that Donald Trump will threaten his allies with vicious tariffs in that case. He's doing that in relation to Canada right now. I don't think we should take any comfort in this. For a moment, we've got a reprieve from an increasingly dangerous and erratic regime in Washington. But they will find the moment to punish Australia like they've punished their other allies, particularly particularly if we do what's right for our national interest and have an independent foreign and defence policy.
Well, as you said, given that any countries that had tried to take action, like Brazil and Canada, have been punished, how would you like to see Australia navigate its relationship with the US in the future? What action should we be taking to try to, I guess, defend ourselves from those stray bullets, as you said?
Yeah. Well, the obvious answer when you're dealing with a bully is not to keep caving in and giving in, because their demands will only grow and grow and grow. You can already see that the Trump administration is lining up the Albanese government, which has not confronted them on anything, for billions more for submarines we'll never get, for even more demands in the defence base. We're in the middle of building the United States a $1.7 billion nuclear submarine base off Perth. How many more demands are they going to make? At some point, this administration needs to understand you have to stand up to a bully, because the demands are only going to get bigger, they're going to get more expensive, and they're going to erode more of our independence.
Do you think the Beach decision from a few weeks ago could have played any role in this? Because we know that Donald Trump welcomed it, he effectively used it to bully other countries, even though the government says that it's not a trade decision, it's a biosecurity decision. Do you think that the way that's played out has ultimately actually strengthened Donald Trump's mandate overseas?
Well, caving in to demand after demand from the Trump administration, refusing to stand up to them on Palestine and Gaza and international law, if that's what it takes to get a discounted tariff, that's too high a price to pay. We cannot sell our independence. We can't trade our biosecurity. We can't trade our moral standing for some kind of temporary deal from Donald Trump. The Australian people recognise that our bilateral trade with the United States is wildly in our favour. They recognise we have power even in the trade relationship, and they expect our Prime Minister to stand up to Donald Trump, not just keeping giving in time after time after time.
We know that a possible 200% tariff still remains on pharmaceuticals. Overnight, we heard that Donald Trump is demanding pharmaceutical giants lower their prices, saying it will require them to negotiate harder with foreign freeloading nations. Do you have concerns that this will impact drug prices in Australia?
Well, we have concerns that Donald Trump has his eye on the PBS and has his eye on any nation that provides pharmaceuticals at a price that their citizens can afford. We know that big US medicine, big US pharma, their corporate medical model is targeting the PBS as a threat to their corporate profits. They want to tear it down in Australia so that it doesn't catch on in other countries. I think every Australian should be anxious when they see somebody like Donald Trump taking a beeline at something as critical to the lives and the health of millions of Australians as the PBS. You know, we will stand in that parliament to defend the PBS. We just hope that we'll have Labor next to us.
And just on the Sydney protest as well, I guess, why do you think it's so important that it takes place on the Harbour Bridge as opposed to just a regular protest in the city centre?
Well, the Harbour Bridge is iconic. It's been the place that Sydney-siders have marched across for reconciliation with First Nations peoples, to speak against the illegal war in Iraq, and now Sydney-siders want to use that symbol of Sydney to say, put food into Gaza, end the genocide. I'm looking forward to joining with tens of thousands of Sydney-siders in that march across Sydney. I hope that the New South Wales Premier is also willing to stand up to Anthony Albanese, stand up to Washington, and let the march happen. I know it's in court today, but regardless of what happens in the court, I know that tens of thousands of Sydney-siders, Australians across the country, will be marching for Gaza, marching for the end of the genocide, and showing the leadership that neither Anthony Albanese or Penny Wong has been able to show in the last fortnight in Parliament. Cool. Thanks very much.